Welcome to Third and Fairfax, the podcast of the Writers Guild of America West. I'm your host, Brian Gary. Fellow host Andra Whipple talks with Hacks creators and showrunners Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and Jen Statsky about returning for season 3 of their Max comedy series, reflections on last year's WGA strike, and why writing is essential at every stage of the process. Listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, or Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. And now, Andra Whipple in conversation with Hacks creators and showrunners Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and Jen Statsky.
Welcome back to Third and Fairfax. I'm Andra Whipple, and we're here with Jen Statsky, Lucia Aniello, and Paul W. Downs talking about Hacks, baby! And I'm so excited to talk about Hacks today because, one, the show is very funny. I saw season 3, very, very funny. And also exciting. It's funny and exciting.
Great.
That's good.
That's good. Exciting is good. We need
exciting
in this time in our culture.
Yeah,
You're competing with a lot of stuff, so
Yeah.
exciting is good.
Yeah, it's exciting. And you premiered yesterday, which
That's
was
right.
a Thursday.
Yes.
So now you're releasing weekly on Thursdays.
That's correct.
2 episodes a week.
Two
yes.
episodes a week on Thursdays. All
That's
right.
right.
Sweet.
Yes.
Except for the last week, which will be 1.
Okay.
Finale last
Okay,
week.
finale.
The
You got to
finale.
hold the finale energy there.
Yes.
It's a special
Exactly.
presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it. You know, this is the Writers Guild. Let's start with, you guys were in production when the strike was called.
Yes.
Can you guys talk about what that experience was like for you as showrunners, and the decisions that you made and how you feel about it now?
Yeah. We started shooting season 3 in November 2022, and we record this today on May 3rd,
May 3rd.
2024, and
Yeah.
the show has
Lord's
just
Day,
come
May
out.
3rd.
Yes. And so we were shooting the season 3, and we had a shutdown already because Jean Smart had needed a health procedure. Thank God she's okay now, obviously. But so we had shut down for that. And then as that shutdown was happening, a lot of the negotiations were starting, a lot of talk about the strike. And we knew really early on, especially because all 3 of us are very involved in the guild, and I was a strike captain. And so we knew very early on what was going on, and kind of were reading the tea leaves. And we knew that for a fact there was no way to keep shooting our show during a writer's strike because A, we wouldn't want to. We wouldn't want to still be working while our other fellow writers were out of work. And B, the way we make the show, writing is such an essential part of it at every step of the process, not just in the writing of the show before we shoot, but while we're shooting, every single day we're on set, we are writing, rewriting, adding things, subtracting things as we hear it come alive with the actors. And then even in editing, we're adding ADR lines. There's just no part of making a TV show, in my mind. I've worked on a fair amount now, and I just have never seen it be possible to not be writing while you're shooting. I mean, it's possible. It's literally possible,
It just turns out bad.
Yeah, it's just you're creatively handcuffing yourself in a way that feels, we love this show. We want this show to be the best it can be. We feel very privileged to have a show in its 3rd season. We have a fan base now. We wouldn't want to just keep forging ahead trying to make a lesser version of the show just to get around some sort of loophole.
Especially in comedy.
In comedy, yeah. So we, once that it came down that we were going on strike, I guess quote unquote had a decision to make, but there was no decision as said.
We didn't even have a conversation about it.
Yeah, we just knew that we were going to shut down, and I think we were the first show to shut down.
And it caused kind of like a wave. People took notice and maybe inspired some other showrunners to do the same. How did that feel?
It felt like a privilege, honestly, that we felt like we could do that, but we, like Jen said, we were all active in the guild. We all really believe in solidarity and union power in our union, but just in general in America, especially right now. I think an incredibly important thing that is potentially what could save us from fascism. But potentially, we'll see.
Keeping it light on
Fingers
a
crossed,
Friday.
fingers crossed. I mean, that's my hope.
But you know, like for us, it really was kind of like this is a line in the sand we would never cross. And so, if anybody, and I believe there were a fair amount of showrunners who used us as an example, which was great. Like great, that is. If you're in a position like we are of being a showrunner and having that power, this is immediately what we want to do with that power.
Yeah, I mean, that did feel really gratifying because, of course, while it wasn't even a discussion for us, it was a no-brainer. We were going to shut down. Obviously, we have a cast and crew who, you know, were also then shutting down. But it was, I think, really buoying for us to hear from people like, oh, our showrunners said, if Hacks can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
So that was really gratifying,
Yeah.
I have to say. And, you know, the other thing for us was the show is about a writer who works with this legendary Vegas stand-up. It's about writing. So it felt even more, it just felt even more appropriate that we not continue during a writer's strike.
Yeah, it's sort of like the whole premise of it is like based on like what writing is, how powerful it can be for people, and to sort of dilute that power by being like, well, we can do it, pretend like to say that you don't write in production or you don't write in post, like that's just not true.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I mean, you would think it was very tempting because we had been shut down for 12 weeks. Before that, and had been really, we had only been up for like a week and a half or something.
Yeah, I think we got 5 days of shooting in.
And then the strike happened. So everyone was just getting back, so happy to be together, so happy to be working again. But, you know, it just felt, like we said, like a non-starter for us.
Yeah, and it is, like Paul said, a testament to our cast and crew who unfortunately had been out of work for, you know, a few months before that, and then they were hearing again that they were going to be shut down. But truly, we got so much support and love from our crew and our cast, and of course then SAG would go on strike not too long after, and the solidarity I think was like really, really inspiring and lovely because our crew was very like, we're with you, we get it, and we said, you know, in turn we'll be with you if it comes to that. And so it was in a really difficult moment, also really inspiring in that way.
Yeah, and it's so nice that you guys were able to sort of transparently have that trust and that understanding with your crew members to say like, yeah, well, we know you'll have our backs too when, you know, if we need it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I think we were also in a very lucky position where, you know, we called Universal and our executives at HBO Max and we said, we can't make this show if we can't write.
Yeah.
We have to be writing on set. We have to be writing at every step. And they said, we know that. We know how you make the show, and we understand that. And so, you know, I'm sure they would have loved for us to keep going, but also, you know, not to call them out. But I do think, like, we were in a position where we weren't feeling the pressure that I think some people did feel to finish post or just shoot us a little bit more or get people who are non-SAG actors from other countries to work or whatever it is. You know, like, we have to say that was also something that
Yeah, we were very
helped
supported by the network and the studio and that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you guys did that because it was a really powerful moment of solidarity. I think it really kicked us off in the right direction for a long strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was long.
Yeah. How did you feel coming back?
We had tans.
Yeah.
We had a good tan rocking, a good base tan, which is not nothing.
No,
I'm just kidding.
You can see the actors who are also writers. You can see a little change in some of them.
There are moments when they're like way tanner.
You're
than
like,
moments.
because we do block shoot, and so we shoot things out of order, and so
Yeah.
every once in a while you'll see a scene in the middle, and you're like, tan and toned. You're walking. You walked a lot. You got your steps in.
You look like you might have plantar fasciitis now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Oh my God.
That's great. Yeah, did it feel good to like finally get back on set and get started? And
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It really was. Like, you know, like every once in a while, you know, when you're like in the depths of production and it can be really brutal, you're like, but I don't think I'll ever feel that way again after having gone through the strike. I feel like now I'm like, it's even more appreciated every day how lucky we are get to make the show with the people we make it with. And I know that sounds cheesy, and I'm sorry if I'm just sounding like Pollyanna, but like it is true.
yeah, it's a great job. It's a dream job.
It
It's a
is.
Cool job.
It
Oh,
is.
God. The dream. It's the dream.
Dream.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of segues into another question that I had because you guys, there's a moment in the beginning of this season where Ava is giving advice to somebody who wants the job that she has, and her advice is just sort of like, it's sort of like appreciate where you are now because you aren't going to be able to go back to that. And so I was curious, you know, first of all, is that the advice that you guys have for people who might want the job that you have? And secondly, like, is there a time that you look back on with like a lot of nostalgia?
Yes. I mean, she gives two pieces of advice. First, she says you got to take a lot of shots on goal. You got to keep trying and get back up. And I do think that's part of the ethos of the show. This, the show is about these women who get knocked down 100 times but get up 101. And so that advice is real.
Yeah.
But it also lands a little flat because the woman who asked the question on that panel, you can see in her face, she's like, okay, sure.
Yeah,
That's-
sure. I have to work
Yeah,
hard.
Sure,
just keep
keep-
trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then when she says, it is really hard. It's so hard, and it just gets harder, and it never stops being a labor of love.
Yeah.
But you can't go back. I do think that that's real, and I do often think about when we were all living and working in New York, and we had survival jobs, and we were like really scraping rent together. But they were writing sketches and shooting sketches, and we were writing sketches and shooting sketches, and
I was really busy with sketches.
we did a lot of sketches.
Lucia was kind of in the middle of the Venn diagram
right.
of Paul and Jen's
That's
sketch
right.
Lucia wasn't
activity.
sketching. Nobody was
yeah.
sketching.
Yeah.
For real.
But I mean, I look back on
hit that final cut, babe.
But I do look back on that time
Yeah.
so fondly of like living in a studio apartment in New York, meeting Jen at 71 Irving.
yeah.
And it's such a romantic time.
Yeah.
And I do miss it in a way.
Yeah.
I definitely miss it. But I also remember the anxiety I had
Of
about being
course.
like, will I be able to break through? Because we lived in New York for a long time, and I was never, I'll speak for myself, never able to get any writing or directing jobs of any sort. And I was just like, is this ever going to happen for me? And it was just like the shots on goal thing was real, and it is true. And I think, truth be told, I mean, from my perspective right now, it's even harder to make it into the industry now than it was then.
Yeah.
So it is like the shots on goal thing is real, and I remember being like, is this going to happen? And so it is like, it's nostalgia for sure when I remember the how I could touch my oven from my toilet or whatever. But I'm also like, I don't miss having my
You don't
toilet.
really
Yeah.
want to touch your oven from your
Yeah,
toilet now.
No.
but it is true that it is like a very romantic, especially when you're young.
Yeah,
that's
there's so
part of the
much like
nostalgia.
that's part of it too, is like that you're young and there's so much possibility, and we're still very lucky now, but it is a thing that you don't. I look back and I'm like, I didn't totally appreciate it in the moment because I was so anxiety forward. I was so
Same.
worried about when will it happen, when will I break through, when will I get the thing, that I don't think I took a beat to kind of enjoy it as much as I should have.
I didn't really go out. I didn't party.
I didn't
much
party
at
very
all.
much either.
Yeah,
I
did, but
That's good. That's
Cool.
good.
I don't remember being invited, but
well, you know what it was is we both worked in like New York City restaurants,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then that
I was
becomes your
waiting.
ecosystem of partying.
Right, right.
So
and I was
was
working a lot on dinner shifts.
And I had some parties. I had some parties at my apartment.
Yeah. Okay, I did party a little.
Yeah, you
went to
partied a
some
little bit.
parties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Party
you're
a
just
little bit.
forgetting the parties because
Well,
they were such good parties.
because what you remember is the chafing between your legs from the heat of the subway in New York when you're
Yeah.
like, gosh, I have
Right.
horrible like chapped
I remember
body.
wearing like J. Crew flip flops and getting like dirty, disgusting feet. But why was I wearing flip flops in the city?
Yeah.
because
walking
it's too
around?
hot. You need
That's
your,
true,
you need
you
your feet
can't-
to breathe.
Yeah.
So you're like,
not-
I will risk the bubonic plague or whatever. I'll get that on my foot because
Yeah.
I'll let a rat run over my foot because I'm
Yeah.
sweating too much.
I feel like I'd rather have closed-toed shoes and like I'd be completely nude.
Yes.
Than
Yeah, I
be
mean-
barefoot on the New York
Yeah.
subway.
You're not alone.
No,
Yeah.
I,
But
I
as
look
you know,
back
that's not
horrified.
legal.
It feels like we're back to just
Not yet.
pitching on Broad City at this point.
Oh, this is feeling very Broad City.
Yeah. Well, Broad City was such an iconic show and something that like so many people. I know for me, it was the show that I was like, yeah, I fucking want to do that shit.
Yeah.
How was it like? How does it feel now, looking back on it and being like that led you to this like amazing HBO show?
I mean, it was the first time we worked with Jen professionally, so that was something that obviously we had a lot of fun doing. But also, I don't know, it was such a baptism by fire because
Yes.
it was like our first thing. It was really scrappy. It was a very low budget Comedy Central show that it felt like the adults weren't home, because
Abby and Alana were show running, and they were,
Yeah.
25 and 28 or something,
Yeah.
27. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was like very young.
Yeah,
So
really
we-
young without like a lot of
Right.
writers' room experience. They didn't like go up a traditional.
Oh, I don't know if they had
way.
seen TV. I look back, and Paul and Lucia were much more involved in every single season and episode than I was. I was doing it remotely, but you guys were very much handed the keys to the car, and like nobody, it's like, especially like you got like it was just kind of crazy. Now looking back, I'm like, they let us do that.
I know.
But in a way, like the inexperience was what kind of I think gave it a unique voice.
Yeah, it made it so special and kind of resonant to people, and also was like such a cool thing that you guys got this opportunity that I'm sure like it influenced how you now see, now that you're more professionally established, like being able to have the keys to the car and kind of drive around and do like weird laps, like probably really helped you hone those skills.
100%. We had to figure it out. And also we have to give credit to Kent Alterman and everyone at Comedy Central, Brooke Posh at the time, and R.I.P. and Sarah Babineau, who really supported the show and were so creative and comedy focused that they really they let us grow up there and they let us figure it out. And I mean, without that, it would have been a very different path for us.
And we would have had so much less experience.
Yeah, I think, and it also, like you're saying, RIP, it makes us look back, and we've been talking a lot about this recently. It's like, even though it was crazy to give Abby and Alana the ability to show run, and everybody was so young and hadn't really done much TV before, it was allowed to be a little bit lower stakes because Comedy Central shows were lower budget, and the ethos of that was like, give young up and coming comedians their first shot, give them their first show. And now, as we move into this streaming era and Comedy Central is no more when it comes to originals and stuff like that, everything feels so high stakes.
Yeah,
it
really
feels
does.
it feels like, you know, someone an executive did recently say to me, I was kind of like, well, what are you looking for in comedy? And they were like, well, honestly, hits. And I was
Great,
like, sure.
thank you so much.
You know, like
Me too.
but
Yeah,
me
we're
too.
all looking for hits, it turns out. We all like to be rich and famous.
Totally. But unfortunately, I think, you know, it's not that executive's fault. I think there's tremendous pressure coming from upstairs, so to speak, not God, but like
God wants to laugh.
the people who own these companies, and things need to hit immediately. They need to be so big. And so there's just like less of an opportunity for younger up and coming comedians to have a show where it can be a little less like high profile, lower stakes. Like now, you know, it just has gotten so outsized in terms of the money being spent and the who gets the opportunities, which is really a bummer.
And while our show is a comedy, and so we're talking about comedy, I do think that's true even for drama. It's sort of like, if it's not, you know, really well-known IP, I do feel like original voices, so it's harder for people to get original ideas on the screen or get jobs in those rooms because they just, right now, there's less and less.
Yeah, and it does feel like a real loss, because it's like, if you look at those things, they prepare you undoubtedly for being able to take the reins of the big, cool, awesome, high budget show. You know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to Hacks, because I want to ask about inside Hollywood jokes. There's like so many great inside-y kind of moments. There was this really funny joke about saying that like a comedy writer thought he was funny because he took a Robert Carlock script and changed a few jokes like that. And it's like, that's so inside baseball. I loved it so much.
It's so inside.
But it made me laugh. So I was like, I know who that is.
Well, shout out to Dylan Galula for that, because she worked on Kimmy Schmidt with Robert Carlock. And so I think the name drop was her.
Was she improvised that?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
But hey, we kept it in.
You kept it in. You kept it in because it was good.
We were like, absolutely, we're referencing Robert Carlock.
But we do have a lot of inside.
Get the Midwest, you know?
One of my favorite jokes from last season was when Deborah asked Ava why she hasn't finished a screenplay, and she says, "My final draft is corrupted." You know? And it's just like, we do have a lot of very inside things.
Yeah, writer specific jokes.
But they're the things that tickle us so much that, and we're always like, if it tickles us, or if one of us can make the other one laugh, that's the bullseye, you know, in the target.
And it is, I think, a good lesson for writing in general. Like, I find this when I watch like Succession, and they're talking about something about, you know, stocks and selling mergers, et cetera, et cetera.
Like,
it's like, I don't understand it, but the fact that the characters do, and that's the language they speak, and it happens so effortlessly, I think just makes you buy into the world of the show even more. So I think that when we put those jokes in for us, like, we want to make sure they're not so myopic and insanely specific.
Right.
Robert Carlock absolutely is, but that's okay. But like, I think it helps you get into the world of the show where you're like, these are real people who work in Hollywood, work in comedy, and that's how they talk.
Yeah, it feels real. It feels kind of honest, and it feels sort of like you're sort of a fly on the wall in a more real situation than if you were just like, if they were just like, jokes are so funny.
Yeah.
Were there any jokes ever, or like any moments that you guys have had to cut or decide not to use because they're too specific?
I'm sure there are.
Definitely.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure.
I mean, so many, I'm sure. Or there are things that we run as alts, and then we may like them so much, but we're like,
Yeah, you're
this
like
is for
nobody.
11 people, you know?
Yeah.
What was it that we were just talking about that? Oh, never mind. I was going to cut this part out, but the thing about like, are you guys a couple? That part.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
that's not
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not. That's
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
That's not
Well,
just
those
a
11
cut.
people are watching this camera.
Well, that's okay. Great.
Yeah.
It's, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. It's like it's for the strike captains. You know,
Yeah,
they'll
the
get
strike
it. They'll
captains
get
are
it.
laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we keep those things in because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Well, that is, when Ava walks through this stages, and she goes, "You need strong."
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like
Oh,
that's-
yeah, season
that's
one,
very
yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and always has been.
Would Ava be a strike captain? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think she would.
for
I
sure.
think she would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
She'd be somebody who's like at the end of one of them, making sure people turn around at the right spot.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
She's wearing the vest.
Yeah.
She's like,
Definitely.
guys, you can't go more than
Yeah,
2 feet
right,
over.
right,
I say as the
right.
person who was
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
like,
I
wearing
think
the
she
vest.
would have tried to be a lock coordinator, but then
Yeah.
the pressure would have gotten to her, and she would have
Oh, high
had to
pressure
relinquish
job.
her duties
Yeah.
like a weekend.
And
But
she would've
strike
said,
captain
I'll-
for sure.
I'll be a strike captain, but I'll also, I'll do the duties of, I'll supervise the gates. I'll go to
Yeah.
the neutral gate.
Would
You know,
Ava
she
be
Yeah.
neutral gate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a
she
neutral
would have
gate queen.
loved.
Yeah.
She would have
Yeah.
loved taking sly photos. And
Yeah.
stuff.
But she might have
Yeah.
gotten bored because like there's not a lot of people to talk to
That's
at the neutral
true.
gate.
I
She might
think
have been
she-
like, I need more attention.
She is a
Right.
social girl.
That's true,
Yeah.
but it's great phone time. It's
Yeah.
great
Ooh,
just be
yeah.
on your phone, the
Yeah.
neutral gate.
Scrolling,
Yeah,
reading
some
an
of my
article at
best
deadline.
scrolling was done at the neutral gates.
Legendary
gate.
scrolling.
Yeah. Oh, R.I.P. That was the worst. That was maybe the worst part about the strike for me.
I know.
I liked doing that, right?
Yeah, I like the neutral gate. Well, you have. I mean,
I coordinated
now
the
we're gonna
neutral gates, so
really
sorry, this
get
is too
into
inside
the
baseball.
nitty gritty. But the universal neutral gate was relatively like calm versus
Yeah.
you had to like at CBS turn gates into
We had a
neutral
whole gate.
gates.
It was a gate.
I see.
Oh,
I-
oh,
yeah.
it was
Gate
gate.
We had
Yeah.
gate gate. We had gate, so it was like it was
Yeah.
just really gates for me. But that's not about hacks.
Can we do a quick shout out to Universal Gate 8 because that was
Yeah.
that was our home base. So we were there. That's where Jen was the captain, and Paul and I were there a lot. And it was a small but mighty group of
Yes.
people, and we saw them every day, and we made new friends. So I just
Yeah.
want to shout out Universal Gate 8.
Anyone listening who is a Gate 8 fellow, we miss you.
We miss
Yeah.
you. Why don't you
Yeah.
come around anymore? We're actually still
We're
there.
We still go to the
Yeah,
gate.
we still actually enter for our stages
We
through
do.
Gate 8.
We go through it all the time.
And if you're saying what gate was that, well, I'll tell you our famous claim to fame,
Uh-oh.
which is
Oh.
that the trees that got cut down to the
Yeah,
bone.
you guys were
that
in the
was,
tree gate.
That was us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was hard.
Yeah, they burned you specifically. These beautiful faces in front of me got
yeah.
sunburned from that.
Yeah,
tree.
our sun damage it can be traced to Universal specifically.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
Yes.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
I should
yeah.
send them a bill. for
I did
my-
have somebody
your
once come up to
dermatologist?
me
Yeah.
with like a picture, and they were like, "I was at Universal Gate 8, and I met everyone from Hacks. Like all of the stars of Hacks were there, and they were
Yeah.
showing me pictures of you guys."
We-
The
all
cast
the
came
cast came
a
all the
lot. It was
time.
really,
Yeah.
Yeah,
really cool.
really like Hannah was there so much. Jean
Yeah.
came out, Mark and
Poppy, who just had a
Delicato,
baby.
Poppy.
Johnny
Like our
Sibley was there a
cast
bunch.
was,
Yeah.
and this was before
Mark
SAG.
and
Like this
Delicato.
was.
Oh yeah, they were out before. In
Like,
fact,
and
I
not
feel
just
bad
once,
because
like,
we
a
wore
lot.
them down before SAG, and then they were like again. You know,
And they're like,
so-
"Oh God, now I have to walk for myself."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh man. Well, shout out to the whole Hacks cast that was at Gate 8. I'm curious, we're talking about like how writing happens, all the way from the scripted process, which is maybe where people think of writing being, but also through production and post. One of the things that stood out to me when I was watching the first 2 episodes, they like end with such a perfect needle drop that like really exemplifies where the characters are. And I was curious if you could talk about how the post process works in, and also how music works in, and that kind of experience of writing the show.
For at least the second episode, which is, King Princess did a cover of Dirty Work. We wrote that into the script. We knew that we wanted to end with, because Deborah serves Ava a little indignity by saying shoes off after, for those who haven't seen it.
It hits
she
so
returns.
hard, but like the lyrics, as you're hearing them, it really kind of, it says what she's feeling.
Yeah, and interestingly, and this goes into I think a little bit of like the writing toward picture is that we had King Princess add sort of a loop of, I don't know, I'm not a musician, so the bridge, whatever, basically extended the intro of that song, the instrumental, so that the lyrics did hit right at the time we needed, because otherwise it would have happened before she got to the door. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's very
perfect. It was really well timed, and I think like that kind of detail is something that I really love in a show. Is when you're just like, it really like it feels like you feel in your body. when
Yes,
the song's
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah!
Yeah.
Feeling right now.
Yeah.
And we actually really talk about that all the time in the
Yeah.
room. And we're actually talking about it right now. I mean, literally right now, but I mean, as we're starting to talk about potential season 4.
Ooh.
But, we talk a lot about like just aiming, like honestly arcing things towards feelings. You know what I mean? And so that is something that we're like thinking about all the time, helping with music, with the editing, like all that stuff. Like at the end of, well, I don't know when this is coming out.
I don't either.
Okay.
Sometime in a week, maybe?
Drop it, whenever. The one thing I will also say is that because we do, not only the three of us, but our entire writer's room, I think that we have such a talented group of people that write really visually and think really visually. And we invite them to like send songs that they're listening to while they're writing, or things that they feel.
Yeah.
You know, we've had people in the writer's room send us playlists that they've just put together. It's so helpful. Yeah, it's really, really helpful. And for me, I like it even before I get into a scene, even if it's just going to score the scene and it isn't like lyric based, you know?
Yeah.
Because Paul is so often in the video village, like blasting music from his phone into people's ears. He walks around and just like puts it up to people's ears for them to get into the mood.
Yeah.
Because we did that also for the opening shot, where we do this drone shot over Las Vegas, and we follow Deborah Vance into the casino, and we knew that was going to be Evil Woman, and so I did.
Yeah, we were playing it during the...
I feel like someone's got to get you like a fucking boombox.
I know,
speaker,
but
like...
it can't really be picked up by the sound department. You know what I mean? It's just kind of for us.
So it's
just
like
for
little for the actors, like
yeah, exactly.
It's like a little pinch in the butt.
We do find that in writing,
but
you
not
know, metaphoric pinch in the butt.
Yes, metaphoric.
We do find that in writing, it's always like whenever we have the song beforehand, those moments usually end up the best. Like it's really, I mean, granted, we have an incredible music supervisor and incredible editors who find songs sometimes after the fact as we're editing, but you know, like Dirty Work, like Evil Woman, we knew going in what those songs were going to be. And I think it just like kind of makes everything feel more intentional. And those moments are some of my favorite of the show.
It hits hard. I love
Oh,
it.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. And shout out to Matt Biffa, our music supervisor.
Yeah.
And our
Hell yeah,
editors.
Matt Biffa.
Yeah, hell yeah, Matt Biffa.
Yeah, he pitched Evil Woman, right?
He did pitch Evil Woman.
Yeah.
See, we wanted to know what it was before we shot it. So he
Yeah.
sent us a bunch. We all gathered a bunch. We listened, and Evil Woman
was the one.
I do really love like going to IMDb and looking up the music supervisor, because I feel like
Do you?
they really add a lot.
Oh my gosh.
It's an
don't get their
incredibly
flowers.
important.
Yeah.
No, they really
Yeah.
don't. And Matt Biffa is an amazing music supervisor. He also does Sex Education.
Oh yeah.
That's great music.
One Day.
I
What
May
else?
Destroy You.
I May Destroy You.
Oh,
He did.
yeah.
Like he is so talented
Less
and
Than
good.
Chemistry he did? I think.
No, that was Carlos.
Okay, never mind.
Cut that.
Oh well. No. Now we've said that there's two people
Well,
who do
he's-
this. in the whole-
He's our
Carlos
composer.
composer.
Yeah. Oh, Carlos the composer. Yeah. See, well, this is good. This is good for people to know. Let's talk real quick as like our last question about your writing staff. You guys, you guys have done writing over Zoom before. Have you also done in-person rooms?
We haven't done this show in person at all.
Really?
been-
Well, the
Yeah.
three of us have been in person.
Yeah, so 3 of us are in person.
So you guys are like in a little corner on a Zoom screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
We're smushed together.
Yeah,
and-
really close.
Or
like
sometimes-
faces right next to each other.
Actually, this is the first season so far we're doing that. Usually we were on our own screens.
Yeah,
At
sometimes,
yeah, that's
we-
true.
sometimes we have 3 different laptops, 1 microphone. That is so nitty gritty.
But this
but I
season,
like
season we've been in a office squeezed into one Zoom box, the three of us.
Yeah.
Which is, it's unbelievable how literally close we are.
Yeah,
Inches.
physically.
Yeah, physically close. But yeah, we obviously Broad City was in person. All the writers' rooms I'd been in before that were in person. But we started the show in deep COVID, where it was
Pre-vaccine.
like pre-vaccine, no one could go out. So that's how we started, and then it kind of just like naturally we stuck with it, and it allowed us to like hire writers who were in New York, and
Yeah.
Pat
they
Regan,
didn't
give a
have to
shout
like
out.
Pat Regan. And I thought I would always like really miss the in-person room, but I kind of really like Zoom.
Yeah, I was curious if you guys miss it, or if you in future seasons you might consider going in person.
Well, we're actually going to be together maybe once a week or something
Yeah, we'll
now.
probably do a hybrid.
cool.
Partially because Pat Regan, our New York writer, is now here. You know, it was always like, can we do this since we have people in the beginning of the pandemic all over the country. Some people were home and went back to live with their parents or in DC, or you know, we had people all over the place. So now I think we're thinking about doing it occasionally in person, but we do like the amount of focus you get when you don't have to commute somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you sign on, you talk, and if you want to go and grab a coffee, you just go and do that. You know what I mean? It seems like it's kind of focused in that way.
Also, it feels like people can like do their other meetings and their other stuff a little easier.
Yeah, it's not as on top of each other, kind of.
Yeah, or like if they have like they have like a development meeting they need to do at lunch, it's like they can just log on to Zoom and go and do that meeting and then just come back to the room without having to drive to, I don't know. It just feels like we also want to make sure that they can do those things.
They can live their lives.
And
Yeah.
live- yeah,
I,
live
ca-
their life.
I came up in Mike Schur writers' rooms, which were a blast
Yeah.
and a joy of my life. But we played a lot of Sporkle,
Yeah.
which is an online trivia website.
That sounds fun as hell.
It was extremely fun, but I have lost hundreds of hours of my life to
Sporkle?
Sporkle because
Yeah.
of that. So there's less like joking around, fucking around, which
Yeah.
in some ways helps the process. But I think,
Totally.
I'm enjoying the
Yeah.
efficiency, I think.
And right now, Paul and I have a very small toddler,
Yes.
and so it is nice to be around him.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
very helpful. We have a couple people on staff with like small
Yes.
children.
That
and
is
so
that is a
it's
big
really
thing
nice
too.
for that too.
From season 1, where people could say, "Hey, 1 second, I gotta,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a crying baby. Give me 1 second."
I got a butt to wipe. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because as much as like we are very much married to our work, and it is, as we said in the beginning, our
Yeah.
firstborn.
Yes.
As dedicated as we are, we also know it's like this is a job for our writers, and as proud as they are of their work on the show, we're not the type of people that have them there chained to their desk. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're
we
all
don't. We have
hours.
very specific hours, and we very rarely go over those hours.
yeah,
We love to see it. We love to see it.
we do too.
Yeah.
We do too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. It was so nice to talk to you guys about Hacks, which is going to be coming out on Thursdays.
Yes.
And
Every Thursday in May.
Every Thursday in May, baby. Is there any last words you want to say to the people?
WGA strong, baby.
Yeah.
WJ
Yeah.
Strong, baby.
Very proud to be in this union.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud to be in this union with you guys. Hell yeah.
Likewise.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I forgot my thing. I say toot toot.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Third and Fairfax. You can listen and subscribe to Third and Fairfax on Spotify, Apple, and Libsyn, and watch us on the Writers Guild of America West's YouTube channel. Also check out writtenby.com, the Guild's online publication, for more on writer craft, career, and union life. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.